Hey everybody, Rosematter here, and welcome to what will most likely be my finale episode of Umineko, and how perfect that we end this on episode 100. Wild, I can't believe this is coming to an end after so long of playing this game, getting wrapped up in the story and the characters. It's going to be ending soon. So as always, we have the tea party and the question mark part as well. I don't know how long it's going to be. I will try and get this all into this last episode. So yeah, we're just going to go ahead. We're going to jump into the tea party. We still have a lot of unanswered questions. As good as it ended last episode, I still have so many things I want to find out. So hopefully we will get these questions answered. The majestic witch of theater-going, drama and spectating set down her pen, looked at the ceiling, and sighed deeply. The desk was covered with a scattered mountain of paper covered with writing. Words were packed onto the pages in a thin, high-information density language that only the great ones could read. Each letter of this language carried the same amount of information as several books in the human world. These letters filled every inch of this huge pile of paper. Surely she'd written out every little detail of some world.
書き切ったには書き切った。いや、正確には書き切っておらぬのだが。
She stood up, sat down in her favorite rocking chair, and rocked peacefully for a while.
どこまでを書けば果たして物語を書き切ったと言えるのか。私の物書きとしての長年の悩みだ。人間の冒険は物語としてとても面白い。しかしどこまでが冒険でどこからがそうではないのかが私をしても未だによくわからぬのだ。すでに没した私の旧友は人間の人生は初めから終わりまでが全て冒険であり、筆を置くところなど存在しないと言ったが。
I'm trying to think, who's this old friend? Was this stated before and I just don't remember who?
私はそうは思わぬ。筆の置きどころというものがあると思う。物語は適当なところまでを記し、その後の余韻や感想は感激者に委ねるべきだと思う。つまり物語は適当なところで猫箱にしまうべきなのだ。猫箱をめぐっての長き物語なのだから、その終焉も最後までを記さず、猫箱にしまってしまうのが良いのではあるまいか。
Oh man, what a tease that would be, as if, like, there's still some questions left to be answered, and she's just like, wouldn't it just be better to just leave it to the imagination of the reader to determine what happened? Sometimes I like stories that end on kind of like an ambiguous ending, but a lot of the time I'm like, no, I want to know exactly what happened. Featherin spoke to no one inside the empty study. Of course, no one commented on her words. However, Featherin seemed to hear something. She nodded and grinned contently.
わかっている。もう少しだけを書き足し、そこで筆を置こう。それで、そなたとはお別れだ。
She talking to the reader directly? It's like she heard me say that. She's like, okay, I'll write a little bit more and then we're done. Featherin held up a finger and spun it around, a signal she wanted to darken the room. The lights in the study dimmed.
ほんの少しだけ休ませてはくれぬか。その間は我が猫、もとい、我が巫女にお相手をさせよう。
Hey, Lambda Delta, I'm glad. I mean, Featherin did say at the end that she was back and she had a seat, so that was kind of her reward for, I guess, being brave and telling a good story.
ミシンは嫌よ。手縫いがいい。 だからせめてもうちょっと優しく。痛い痛い。唾つけときゃ治るわよ。予告なく舐めないで。今から畳針でぶっすり縫うわよ。マジで痛いから覚悟して。5、4、3、2。そういう予告は嫌。
But despite all this, the two of them truly were close. Though Lambda Delta had been brutally dismembered in the final fight, she had survived. But unfortunately, she was still dismembered. Are we going to see her dismembered body? So Berncastel was sewing her arms and head back on with a needle and thread. The left arm, which was still waiting to be reattached, walked around on the bed impatiently with its index and middle fingers. Only the arms were left to do, so it looked like this would be finished soon. Then Erica returned, slamming the door open. We know she loves her chopsticks.
じゃあいい？そのごま塩の中身をザラッと出して、お箸でごまと塩に分けなさい。はい、我が主。
I mean, I guess however you get your kicks, however you have your fun, I suppose that sounds like a nightmare.
私の華麗なるお箸さばきをどうかご覧ください。頑張ってね。終わったらちゃんと袋に戻しておくのよ。あんた、またそういうことしていじめてんの？遊んでるのよ。失礼ね。そうそう、エリカ、さっき郵便配達が来て、あんた宛ての手紙を置いていったわ。手紙？事件の予感がします。言わないで。私が差出人を当てます。消印は展開ね。ドラノールあたりじゃない？あんたたちまだ進行があったのね。驚きだわ。ただ消印があるだけでベルンカステルにはこの程度の推理が可能です。ピピピダメです、我が主。バンダイン第9則、探偵が複数あることを禁ず。じゃああんたが出てけばいいわけだわ。
I mean, she was okay with Angie last episode, using her little catchphrase.
またね、名探偵エリカ。そんな、我が主、真実の魔女エリカ、ここに。あんたらって仲いいのか悪いのか、未だによくわかんないわ。悪いに決まってるでしょ。私が愛してるのはあんただけよ。そんな、我が主。ラムダデルタ卿、やはり私とあなたは相入れないようですね。何よあんた、この大ラムダデルタを相手に勝負する気？
Erica grinned and grabbed Lambda Delta's left arm that was walking around the bed.
ここにラムダ
She's like, I'll slap you with your own arm, you bitch.
ここは断面です。
Erica grinned and wiggled her fingers menacingly.
まさかあんた、私のライバルにはこんなことができます。
She tickled the open end of Lambda Delta's left arm. Apparently, she was extremely ticklish. I thought it was going to go a little bit darker. I thought she was going to, like, poke in the insides of her arm to, like, cause pain. Incidentally, the open end of Lambda Delta's arm was cute and fluffy with white cotton candy poking out. Apparently, her body was made out of sweet candy with a bit of spice thrown in. Put your mind at ease, as there's nothing remotely terrifying about her severed arm. Erica ran around screaming, I've defeated Lady Lambda Delta all by myself, just like my master. Lambda Delta growled and hissed at her. Berncastel kept on sewing, an exasperated look on her face. It was a very peaceful scene.
それで手紙にはなんて？ドラノールたちの近況でも書いてあんの？ガ
ガートルードさんは異端審問官に昇進したとか。そりゃあおめでとうございます。パチパチ。へえ、最近猫に続いてワニャンを飼い始めたとか。
ワニャンって。ベルン知ら
That
ない
like
の？
a cat dog?
遅れてる。
Meow wolf? Part cat, part dog?
最近ブームじゃない。最近私もメスのワニャンを飼い出したのよ。コンペイトーも美味しく作れて最高よ。よくわかんないけど、今度からあんたの手作り菓子を食べるのは遠慮するようにするわ。
コーネリアさんは、へえ、審問官選考に格闘技団員が有利として最近は格闘技を始めたとか。
全然想像がつきませんね。格闘技ったっていろいろあるわよ。何始めたの？
キックボクシングに中国拳法だとか。エヴァの影響ですかね。
片足で立って戦いそうなイメージない？そうよね。誰かさんが片足立ちをずいぶん鍛えたもんね。
ウィルさんの近況も書いてありますよ。意外。ウィルさん FX で一山当てたらしくて、それで不動産買って今は不動産収入で悠々自適だとか。最近はバドミントンやってるんですって。
I like the idea that he's hanging around with Leon. That's awesome. I like the two of them together, whether just as friends or something else.
コーチが厳しそうね。きっとお尻が腫れ上がってるわよ。で、ドラノールは？
I mean, if Will was around me, I would have a hard time resisting pinching his butt too.
相変わらずハンコと決済員と認め員とたまにサインの日々だそうで。自分が直々に出動するから自分の管区でぜひ事件を起こしてほしいです。
I like her. Is that her impression of Delanor? That very like flat way of talking? That was a good impression.
事件。探偵が行くとこ事件ありって言うもんね。
まあそのうち気が向いたらいじめに行ってあげてもいいかもです。あとシエスタ姉妹兵たちのことも書いてあります。
待って、一度に聞きたくないわ。少しはもったいぶらなきゃ。さあ、できた。やっと右腕が生えたわ。次、左腕をお願いね。その前にお茶にしましょう。エリカ、紅茶の缶と梅干しの壺を用意してちょうだい。はい、我が主。
With this particular journey over and done with, the Voyager witches rested their wings. It was all so they could leave on a new journey in search of the next fragment. Short break between trips, backdropped by the pleasant scent of black tea.
今度はどこへ行く？あんたが北へ行くなら、私は南へ。じゃあ、ベルンが東へ行くなら、私は西へ行くわ。また、こんな愉快な物語を見つけられるといいわね。今度はベルンが憎まれ役じゃないといいわね。あら、悪役も楽しかったわよ。次はどんな物語を見つけられるかしらね。そして、どんな物語で再会できるのかしら。愛し合う二人に、かけらの海は狭いわ。天井桟敷。かけらの海は広大だわ。殻の中の幽霊。いつか会えるわよ。また何かの泣く頃に。いいじゃない。それにしましょう。いつか会えるわ。また何かの泣く頃に。
The happy voices of the witches faded into the distance.
さよなら、みんな、また何かの泣く頃に。
Yeah, it's too bad that the next story, it's technically out, but only the first chapter so far because I've heard that because of COVID, I believe the second chapter was supposed to be out of Sakonia. I believe that's how it's pronounced, but Nothing yet, unfortunately. That will be down the line. I will be playing that. But preferably, I would like to wait until maybe the second chapter is out so I don't finish it so soon. Alright, so that was a little fluff piece, as usual, with the tea party. Little short thing. Got some, updates on what's happening with some of the characters. And now the finale. I wonder if I should do the character one before or after. I usually leave it to the very end, just in case things change within, the question mark, if anything, like, new is introduced. So, alright. Let's hope this one is longer and we get more information. Otherwise, this will be a very short episode indeed. Oh, decades later. Thank you. Already I'm excited. This is a good sign that we're going to get new information here. Now, is this decades later 1998, or is this decades later from 1998 to more recent times, perhaps? It was the largest banquet hall in this huge hotel. The many guests that filled the room chattered and applauded the person receiving an award trophy on top of the stage. The sign in front said, Biggs Publishing Company Award Ceremony.
続きまして小説部門に参りたいと思います。受賞作は皆さんもご存知。世界的な一大ムーブメントを巻き起こし、破竹の快進撃を続けるファンタジー冒険小説。作太郎の大冒険です。
It's Angie. Angie became an author. She said she wanted to be a children's author, right? That's adorable. The projector in front of the audience showed a brief summary of the series. It was a lengthy fantasy adventure novel that was already more than 8 installments long. Did we get to see older Angie? The thrilling fantasy story told of the adventures of Sakotaro, a cowardly Vegeta lion who made friends, learns through his experiences, and grows in his search for the one fragment. The main character's catchphrase, I'll become the king of the beasts, was even one of the candidates for best phrase to come into Modern Slang Award. Really? I guess there are some weird things that kind of become catchphrases, but that seems a little basic. In addition to being a thrill to read, the books also contained many messages for children to learn from, earning it high praise as an adventure novel that parents and kids could enjoy reading together. However, it hadn't received praise like this from the beginning. For the first 6 volumes, it went almost entirely unnoticed. But last year, when foreign translations of the series began, it got its big break and suddenly became a huge topic of conversation. Even before the series, the author had created quite a lot of works, but none of those had achieved any public acclaim. However, after the sudden rise in notoriety, her previous works were being reevaluated one after another. It's probably fair to say recognition of her works was very late in coming. Oh, Kotobuki. That must be the name that Angie's going by now. She did say she's going to try and, start a new life, new identity.
今回の作太郎魔女の島へも実に素晴らしい作品でした。
Publishing company executives repeatedly showered her with praise. Sakutaro's great adventure, the author's name, was Kotobuki Yukari. Nearly all her royalties were sent to a fund to support needy children, and she herself served as the director at several protective institutions. I'm wondering if her name has any sort of meaning. I just that I don't know because I don't know Japanese. Like the whole thing with the Toya Ikaku or Ikako, which stood for 18. Some envious people tried to call this fake charity, but the more that people learned about her, the more those voices withered and died away. Kotobuki Yukari. By now that name rang loud and clear across Japan. She sat in a chair cheerfully chatting with the people who came to greet her. Last year it was discovered she had developed a small tumor. Whoa! And after the surgery, her physical strength had dropped sharply. Because of this, even in the stand-up awards party, she was given a chair and sat down while greeting people. I'd be surprised if this was Angie, I'm assuming this is Angie, that she would be able to kind of break away from the Ushiramiya name, considering how popular the Ushiramiyas were, in the media. Some people lamented, saying if only she'd been 20 or even 10 years younger, she might have left her mark in history as one of the greatest authors in the 21st century. It had taken so long for her to receive the praise she deserved. Oh, I'm wondering if this might be She can no longer be called young. I was like, okay, decades later, right? Decades later, Angie was 18. They don't say how many decades. I was thinking, I was like, maybe she's still pretty young, but I guess not. Even so, her determination to write had not wavered in the slightest. The story had gone around that even during her stay in the hospital, most of her time had been spent typing away. She always said the same thing, that she hadn't finished telling everything she needed to tell. I was thinking, I was like, when they said about how she was like older, I was like, well, maybe this is Hachiko Toya instead. Did she mean she hadn't fully completed Sakuraga's Great Adventure? Because, like, that was in the tea party where she said, like, you know, I want to keep writing. Have I written everything that I want to? This is how she answered when the question was asked by a journalist. If by writing even one more book, I can teach just one more child how to find happiness. No, this has got to be Angie. This has to be Angie. Then I will spend the rest of my life to write every book, every page that I can, because I still haven't fully conveyed the precious teaching I was given. Right? She's passing on the stuff that she learned from her family. That's Angie, definitely.
申し遅れました。私、〇〇出版第一編集局長の〇〇と申します。
これはどうもご丁寧に。いつかご一緒に仕事ができるといいですね。
実は先生、その唐突なお話なのですが、推理小説家の八条東也先生をご存知でしょうか。
Was I calling her Hachiko? Hachijo Toya.
八条東也先生ですか?
She recalled that name for the first time in several decades. She hadn't expected to ever hear it again.
ご存知ですか？ひょっとしてお会いになったことがおありとか。
Now here's the big question about that is, have they met? Like, we've seen them meet in fragments and whatever, but this is where I'm a little like, they met in real life? Yes? No? No. Wait a minute, hold up. Are they going to be setting up a meeting with Hachijo? And if, you know, it wasn't Angie that obviously Hachijo was looking after, that was Badler. Oh my god, this is what I was hoping for. Like, are they going to get to meet?
お尋ねしたこともありましたが、当時は私も無名。それも唐突に出版社さんへ押しかけたもので、お断りされてしまいまして。
おや、それは初耳でした。ひょっとして八条先生の作品がお好きだったりするようなことは。
いいえ、ただどのような先生かお会いしたいと思ったことがありましたもので。
そうでしたか、そうでしたか。実はですね、その八条東也先生がですね、先生に内々にお会いしたいと申しておりまして。
Oh my gosh, I wonder if, like, maybe Badler or Ikigo or whatever the name is that he goes by, if maybe he got his memories back and maybe he saw, like, Angie, since she's so popular, maybe he saw her on TV or something and was like, oh my god, that's my sister. I have to meet her. Please, please, please.
はい、対談や何かというわけではなく、内々に個人的にお会いしたいということでして、もしお許しいただけるのでしたら、我々の方でセッティングをさせていただきたいのですが、もちろん、これは仕事の話ではございませんので。
Hachijo Toya wants to meet Kotobuki Yukari. Just like I realized that Ito Kukuro was Hachijo Toya. Did she use my name to figure out my identity? So it is some sort of like, there's something to the name, right? That's like a riddle. The Rokenjima mystery, which was sometimes called the greatest social phenomenon at the turn of the century, that uproar which dragged in enthusiasts from across the world, had suddenly subsided after an event held by Hachijo Toya, where she was going to unveil Ushiromiya Ava's diary containing the truth. This is what I was wondering. I was like, where was Angie during all this? Though she had set up the event herself, she then outrageously disappeared without releasing the contents of the diary, drawing harsh criticism for doing so. Or is maybe Hachijo's just going to give her back the diary? However, at the same time, this event resurrected a very, very natural feeling within the public, that all this was prying into a terrible accident with many victims only for the sake of curiosity. And so the frenzy surrounding the Rokujima mystery faded away quietly. Hachijo Toya, no, Ito Kukuro. She caught the public eye as a forger of Rokujima mysteries. She claimed to have reached the truth and released groundbreaking works of fiction one after another. Maybe that's why Angie barged in and was like, who are you to write these stories about my family? She became famous as the driving force behind the Rokujima mystery. And at least, like, in some of the chapters, like, she met with Hachijo to, like, find out information, since she was writing stories about, like, do you know anything about the, the disaster? After realizing that Ito Kukuro was Hachijo Toya, I went to her publishing company to ask for an interview, but I didn't get one. At the time, I despised her, right? Yeah. Makes sense. Back in the beginning, I thought she might have used the Rokujima mystery as a publicity stunt to advance herself, but now I feel a bit grateful to her. She hadn't refused to show the diary in such an outrageous way. The Rokujima cat box might still be the plaything of countless goats. She is indeed a forger who toyed with the cat box, and I still have an uneasy feeling about her. However, at the same time, she is the one who, practically speaking, allowed Rokujima to rest in peace. And did she really reach the truth or not? How is it she reached something that, even from my perspective, was infinitely close to the truth? Even now, all these years later, that's something I'd love to know, if it's possible to find out.
いかがでしょうか、寿先生。もちろん急なお話ではございません。八条先生もお時間がいただけるならいつでもいいとおっしゃっておりまして。
わかりました。先方は都心に近い方ですか？
いつでも参上できると申しております。
わかりました。では来週の日曜日に静かな喫茶店でお会いできるようお取り計らいをお願いしてもよろしいですか？
はい、わかりました。ありがとうございます。本当にありがとうございます。八条先生もお喜びになると思います。
条件があります。
はい、なんなりと。
お仕事の話ではありませんので、編集の方はご遠慮ください。
無論でございます。そのようにいたします。
私と八条先生の二人きりでお会いします。そのようにお願いできますか？
ああ、実は先生。
Oh!
その、ここだけの内
Oh!
密な話
The whole
なん
thing
ですが
about, like, only two people, she bringing someone with her?
何ですか？
What?
実はですね、
Oh.
八条東也先生は、お
Yes!
二人で書かれている先生でござ
Right?
いまして。
That's how Hachijo, right? She has the information is because you've got someone who is literally there, so I'm assuming he got his memories back.
対外的には女性の先生がお一人で書かれていることになっておりますが、実際はもう一人、
Yep, yep,
男性の
yep.
先
I
生
mean,
がおりまして、
yeah, it had to be, right?
そ
But still.
のお二人でお会いしたいと申しておりまして。
Oh, Angie, the whole thing about, like, she's gonna get her miracle. She, like, gave up on the idea of ever seeing her family again. Getting her miracle. As soon as I heard that, I felt a premonition. How had Hachijo Toya, a person with no connections to the Ushiramiya family, managed to write about their private circumstances in such detail? I actually felt a premonition of a certain kind of miracle. When I left on my journey, I abandoned the name of Ushiramiya Angie and stepped into a new life. By now, things had settled down, but back when the Sumadera family was still a threat, I wanted to distance myself from that name. Thanks to that, no one was able to get in touch with the new me anymore. However, this year, Sakutaro's great adventure had caught the public eye. It had made the name of Kotobuki Yukari famous, and maybe that name had finally reached his ears. I used to play with a lion stuffed animal called Sakutaro, along with Maria Onichan. Oh, I didn't even think about, like, Sakutaro being the connection. Right, that makes sense. Of course, he'd know about Sakutaro. If those who knew this connected the name Sakutaro with the hint in my own name. Okay, so there is a hint in her name as well. I'm just too dumb to know what it is. And it's only natural they'd figure out who I was. The number of people who could recognize me from this was very, very limited. This person was also well-versed in detective novels and a man. I could only think of one person who matched. After all, I had learned just how many detective novels he'd kept piled up in his room while going through his personal effects. It was almost the time we'd arranged for our meeting. Oh, my heart was racing, almost like a girl in love for the first time. I'm excited too. At precisely the arranged time, I heard the sound of the chime on the door, and they appeared. Oh my gosh! It's him. It's gotta be him. And Hachijo somehow looks exactly the same? Question mark, even though, like, decades have passed and he's got gray hair? Is she she's a witch, right? She's an immortal. It was a man sitting in a wheelchair and a woman pushing him. My eyes immediately fixed on the man in the wheelchair. And right away, I saw the similarity in his face. He was unmistakably my brother. My brother, Ushiromiya Badler. Oh my god, my heart. Oh, he looks just like Kinzo. Oh my god. Like, I know they said the whole thing about how Kinzo and Badler are very alike, but holy cow. Like, twinsies. When our eyes met, he gave a little bow. I hurried to my feet and bowed back. It was a somewhat exaggerated and silly way for a pair of siblings to greet each other after several decades apart. But the miracle I'd waited for all these years had become a reality. My mind was now completely blank.
寿ゆかり先生でいらっしゃいますか？
You gotta think, so Badler was 18, decades have passed. He's obviously, like, he was injured from the, I don't know if the wheelchair, it was probably, he had to be in that from the beginning because he was so hurt. But, like, I'm looking at him, he's, like, probably, I'd guess, in his 60s? Ballpark guess? And looking pretty good, I have to say, depending on how old he is. So Ange is probably, like, in her 40s, maybe 50s? And Hachijo looks exactly the same. And she was older than them way back then. It's like, Hachijo, tell me, what is your secret? What is your skincare routine?
はじめまして先生。今日は貴重なお時間を誠にありがとうございます。私は八条育子と申します。主に執筆を担当しています。こちらは東野。主に原案を担当しています。
Oh wait, he's Toya? She's Ikiko? Oh, I'm mixed up. Though the woman who called herself Ikiko was far older than me, she seemed to be, right, unbelievably youthful. Exactly. It wasn't because she was good with makeup or dressed like a younger woman. It felt strange to say it. There was a strange mystique about her, as though she was immortal and never aging, right? Yeah. And I quickly remembered she had introduced my brother as Toya.
失礼ながらお二人はご結婚を？
結婚はしておりませんが、ずいぶん長く一緒におります。
そうですね。
Oh,
気づけば
sounds exactly the
ず
same.
いぶん長く一緒にいましたね。
My brother smiled as he spoke. When I learned that, at least for him, those long decades hadn't been a period of isolation and loneliness, I felt an incredible sense of peace and relief. I suddenly realized he was staring into my face, just as I'd been staring into his. I want to see what Angie looks like now. After all, when he saw me last, I was just 6 years old. It must be hard for him to find any traces he could recognize. However, I'm sure he would recognize something just the same. We kept stealing glances at each other and looking away like a couple on a blind date. We were both at an age where outside appearances mattered to us. Even though we both knew, we couldn't let our polite exterior falter. Man, props to them. Like, I feel like most people just run over and just, like, tackle them. This humorous exchange was extremely embarrassing. I thought when fate reunited two people like this, they would hold each other and sob tears of gratitude together. However, it seemed the reality of it was different. But that's fine. Feels like my heart will explode with happiness.
注文を取りましょう。
Alright, I have this. I don't need anything else. I was talking about, like, I need questions answered. This was the big one. Was, like, were they gonna reunite? Yes, I'm happy.
コーヒーでいいですか？皆さん何かお好みは？
私には酸味が強くないの。寿先生は。
Oh, I don't like how formal they're being with each other.
私は何でも。ではカフェオレを。
How stiff we're being. Even my brother seems to be finding it amusing by now.
さて、
When she said that, my brother and I fell silent and sat up straight.
私から？それとも東野から話しますか？
私から話しましょう。そのために今日は無理をお願いしたのですから。
As he spoke, he watched me calmly.
私は今日
Okay, he's being like this because he doesn't know for sure. They don't have the complete confirmation. They're like probably 95% sure.
彼女の名は後宮エンジェ。
Yeah.
あなたの作品と先生のお名前を聞き、私はあなたが後宮エンジェさんに違いないと。
Once I have confirmation. Hug, you bastards. Come on now.
はい。
その名を名乗ることをやめ、
I love it
もう
switches
随
back
分に
to
なりますが
Angie.
本名を後宮エンジェと申します。
I gave the exaggerated bow I'd gotten so used to these long years. Oh, wait, I was like, I guess they said that she was, she had, because of she was sick, she's also in the wheelchair, so she can't just go run up and hug him, right? Or, oh, but still, it's like, come on, man, hugs, hugs. We both aged, haven't we, Oni-chan? I whispered this in my heart. Now it was my turn. With a quick apology, I fished around in my handbook and took out a photo. That's, oh my gosh, that's adorable. It was a picture from a trip I'd taken to an amusement park with Badler Oni-chan, and that was the one where he got her those little things for her hair, right? I had many pictures of us having a good time, but this one had the best shot of his face. I looked between him and the photo. There's no longer any room for doubt.
東野先生、あなたの本名は後宮バトラーさんですね。
The hands of the clock inside me stopped. I wanted him to answer with a yes. Even though I was already so sure, I was still about to burst with the tension. And then, when that instant that seemed far too long ended, my brother answered.
そうです。
Unconsciously, I stared at my brother's face. With unbelievable quickness, he'd acknowledged he was Ushirimiya Badler. My eyes immediately filled and overflowed with tears. I took out a handkerchief and wiped them away, but I couldn't hold them back. Oni-chan was alive after all, so why didn't he come back to me right away? If he'd been there during my darkest days, how much it would have meant to me. Normally the thought would have made me curse my brother, but by now, even that emotion was softened. Because now that I was faced with the miracle of being reunited with Oni-chan, everything I felt before now fell with my tears. It sucks that she's sick, though hopefully they'll get some time together, like a good amount of time together. This moment, I was happy. I wasn't alone. That belief had kept me going for decades, and finally, I had been rewarded. By now, I couldn't even stop my tears. For some time, I continued to sob and sniffle. Watching this, my brother hung his head apologetically. Why hadn't he come back to me sooner? It looked as though he was feeling regret for that. But I'm sure he must have had some sort of reason. He'd probably come here today to tell me about it and apologize. Already, just by him introducing himself to me today, everything inside me had been washed clean with tears.
すみません。こんなみっともないところ。
いいえ、無理もないことです。あなたは何十年もの間、たった一人で家族の帰りを信じ、待たれたでしょうから。
信じてましたよ。帰ってくるって。お兄ちゃん。
I held out my hand weakly, and my brother slowly held his out too. Then I gripped his hand. Regardless of how many long years had passed, it was without a doubt my brother's hand. Once more, I struggled to hold back the tears. Alright, so now we're gonna get into the breakdown here, though we know a lot of this. Right?
兄さんはどうやってあの事故を免れたのです？
私はあの日、
Okay.
地下道に逃れました。
それはクアドリアンに続く？
島の反対側の隠し屋敷に続く地下道だと教えられました。しかし、私たちはクアドリアンではなく、
That's right. He said we, right? He didn't escape with Ava. That was... Now, I doubt it was Beatrice, because we had that whole thing about... There was that thing at the end, the last episode, where they were on the boat together, but I don't think she was there. I think maybe it was a figment of his imagination, because it was thing he said, like, when he turned around, she was gone, or something like that. I'll let him explain. I don't know under what circumstances my brother entered the underground passage on that day, but I was gonna say, Beato, or Beatrice, whoever Beatrice, you know, would have known about that. I assume would have found out about that from Kinzo, perhaps, once they revealed themselves as being Kinzo's daughter. At any rate, he went into the underground passage, split up with Aunt Ava there, and escaped to the submarine base. Oh, okay, so he did go with Ava. There he escaped the explosion and survived.
そこから私はモーターボートで脱出しました。ですが、 その途中で
Huh.
おそらく
I'm wondering if,
転覆してしまったのでしょう。
like, did Ava bring him down there with her to try and, like, save him? Maybe she felt guilt because, like, she was the one who killed his parents, right? That's what happened, I believe. I can't quite remember the circumstances. I'm sorry, guys, but so either way, okay. So he was down there with Ava. Whether he followed her or he went down there with her, they got split up, and we know that he got onto the
お
motorboat.
そらくとは申し訳ありません。トーヤは記憶障害があるのです。海で溺れた前後の記憶が曖昧なのです。
ひょっとしてしばらくの間彼は自分が後宮バトラであることを忘れていた。
その通りです。
Yes, that explains nearly all the riddles. My brother escaped from the explosion, but either his boat capsized during the escape from the island, or he fell overboard. Afterwards, he must have drifted somewhere, wandered about half conscious, and maybe got into a traffic accident. Maybe he was delirious and he thought Beato was with him. She fell in. He thought she fell into the water. He went in after her. And that's why maybe he jumped off the boat. Or, like I said, maybe it just capsized on its own.
彼はあの日路上に倒れていました。
彼女が私に気づくのがもう少し遅れていたら、私は二度と目を覚まさなかったでしょう。
跳ねたのは私ではないかと随分疑われた気もしますが。
いや、それはもう謝りましたよ。
This explains pretty much everything. Either because of the time he nearly drowned, or because of the traffic accident, my brother's memory was damaged. His memory must have come back eventually. However, by that time, I'd already set foot into my new life as Kotobuki Yukari. Only a handful of people, including President Okanagi, knew where I was. Even if my brother tried to contact me, there was a very good chance he wouldn't be able to. Ironically, the name I abandoned when I decided to live in the future had delayed my reunion with my brother for so long. In that sense, I am responsible. I did it to myself. However, I think I did receive the message that my brother sent me. It was through Ito Kukuro. I realized Ito Kukuro, the forger who claimed to have reached the truth, was actually Hachijo Toya, and I did request a meeting with her through the publishing company, question her about why she was so sure she'd reached the truth. However, I wasn't granted a meeting. In the end, I heard nothing from them, and it's taken all these decades for me to meet Hachijo Toya. The publishing company had only passed my message on. We could have been reunited so much sooner. However, at the time, I was just a bourgeoisie girl who liked to throw money around. Why would they pass on my message when I just barged in with no introduction and demanded to meet the famous and popular Hachijo Toya? We probably crossed paths several times. Just one of those had worked out. If only we'd been able to meet. Just how much would my life have changed? Well, better late than never, right? But this was fate. God had decided a few decades were needed before the sibling reunion. And during that time, my brother became one half of a mystery novelist. I became a writer of adventure novels for children. You could say we achieved success in society. My brother and I were able to be reunited after becoming successful. Now I could do nothing but thank God for bringing about this miracle.
お互いが作家として成功してから再会できたのも神様のおぼし召しでしょうね。当時の私は無名だったから取り継いでもらえなかった。
I just love the idea that they're so similar to each other as siblings that they, like, without even realizing it, they both went into the same occupation.
そして私も兄も作家として有名になったからこうして巡り会えた。
And who knows, maybe if she had met Badler sooner, she wouldn't have bothered to write those stories. Maybe Badler would have convinced her to do it, but she wouldn't have written those stories and passed along, you know, the things that she learned from her family.
これもすべて神様のおぼし召しだと思います。
当時あなたが出版社を経由して私たちに面会を求めているという話は、伊藤育九郎の正体に気づいたファンが面会を求めているが、お会いになりますかと。
押しかけてくるファンもたくさんいらっしゃったでしょうからね。いちいちお会いにはなれなかったでしょう。
いいえ、あなたの名前が後宮
Oh,
エンジェだと
Wow.
担当者から連絡はありました。当時私はすでに当夜の本当の名は後宮バトラであると気づいていましたので、あなたと彼を面会させるべきではないかと思ったのです。
So this is way back way back before she became a novelist. But Badler?
私が
Badler was the one. Maybe he was
断ったん
like,
です。
it wasn't, we weren't ready for this. Those were my brother's words.
今なんと
私があ
Wow.
なたに会いたくないと断ったんです。
Once more, my brother spoke clearly. I was completely confused. I could only sit there in shock and silence, waiting for the words that were sure to follow.
当夜は記憶障害だったとはすでに申し上げたと思います。それがある日、
どうして私だと分かってて断ったんです？
I cut through Ikiko's words and questioned him directly. What reason could my brother have for rejecting me? I couldn't think of anything. That unpleasant feeling brought up long-forgotten feelings of anger inside me.
一人ぼっちの妹が孤独に押しつぶされそうになりながら生きているのをあなたは知っていたはずです。なのにどうしてその私があなたの元へ訪れるのを拒まれたのですか？
My brother hung his head. It seemed more like he was lost for words than apologetic. Unable to sense he even felt any compunction about his actions. I questioned him again in an even louder voice. When I asked for an appointment with Hachijo Toya, Ito Kukuro was already famous as a forger. Why did Ito Kukuro's forgeries reach the truth? It's obvious. My brother, Ushirimiya Badler, explained to her what happened on the island in detail. The appearance of Ito Kukuro proves my brother's memory had returned. Therefore, he can't excuse himself by saying he didn't remember me. In fact, no, he isn't trying to make excuses. On the contrary, he's openly saying he refused to meet me, even though he knew who I was.
今となっては後悔しています。
後悔って私の気持ちを考えたことはあるんですか？この数十年間人生のほとんどをどんな気持ちで私が過ごしてきたか。
Various emotions swirled inside of me. I realized I wasn't in control of them anymore. I could only moan to prevent myself from saying something I'd regret.
あなたにひどいことをしたと今は深く後悔しています。ですからあなたをあれからずっと探していました。
Ah, it's so frustrating that, like, what's his, like, he still hasn't given the reason. Maybe even he doesn't know
あ
why.
なたにとっても私にとってももっと早くに出会うべきでした。
ならなぜあの時会ってくれなかったんですか？
寿先生、先ほどもお話ししました通り、彼は記憶障害を持っています。事故の後遺症です。
それでも記憶は戻ったじゃありませんか。
ええ、記憶は戻りました。ただ、それでも後遺症は治りませんでした。
私は後宮バトラの記憶を持っています。ですがそれが自分のことと思えない。受け入れられないのです。
自分のことと思えない。
はい、確かに私は島を脱出した前後のことは今でも記憶があやふやです。しかしそれ以外のことはほとんどを思い出しました。例えばあなたが大事にしていたピンクの髪飾りは私が遊園地のゲームコーナーで取ってあげたものだとか。
ええ、そうです。私の子供の頃の宝物です。今もこうしてハンドバッグの中に大事にしまっています。
他にもいろいろ。あなたがひじきが嫌いでお母さんを困らせていたことや、それを私のお皿に移してごまかそうとしたことや、他にも。
そこまで覚えていて、どうして自分の記憶と思えないのですか？
それが私の後遺症なのです。いくつもの病院を巡りましたがどうにもなりませんでした。あなたにはわからないでしょう。
I think this is an actual thing that some people experience, right? And I know it's not the right term. I've said this before. There was like another game I played with something kind of similar with somebody who had memories, but like or like they didn't recognize themselves as themselves. And I said it was imposter syndrome. That's not quite it. Imposter syndrome, I think, is something different. It's when you believe that you don't deserve the successes and things that you have because, or like you don't believe that you deserve your job or whatever because you feel like you're an imposter and you don't deserve these things. This is something else, but I can't quite remember. Like it's like a dissociative thing almost.
ある日、突然、知らない男の記憶が頭いっぱいに溢れ出すのが、どれほど辛いことか。
It was a terrifying feeling of losing his own identity. Memories of a stranger filled his head and they threatened to crush and overwhelm him. Was he afraid by meeting Angie it was going to make it real and he didn't want that? He just didn't want to do like, and he didn't want to see anything from like his past. They were almost certainly his own lost memories. However, his brain couldn't accept them as his own.
辛く、恐ろしい日々でした。自分が
That's when he had like all those his headaches and like he'd be in pain whenever he would remember stuff.
今日明かりを消して眠ったら、自分という私はもう二度と目覚めず、明日の朝からは私の体を乗っ取った違う男が生活を始めるのではないか。そんな恐怖が数えきれぬほどの夜に私を苛み続けました。
彼も何度かはそれが自分の正しい記憶であると受け入れようと努力したのです。自分は後宮バトラであると何度も念じ続けました。
ですが、ダメだった。私は私。八条東也なんです。頭の中にどれほど後宮バトラの記憶が溢れようとも、それは私には他人の記憶なんです。
It's so sad. It's like, so Angie has her brother back, but at the same time, he doesn't feel quite like her brother.
私には後宮バトラを受け入れることは。
As Ushiramiya Badler said this, he hung his head and his eyes turned red.
彼はある日、自分と受け入れられぬもう一人の自分との板挟みに発作的に運よく一命を取り留めましたが、その時の怪我から車椅子で生活せざるを得ない体に。
Okay. I was thinking, I was like, maybe he was in the wheelchair from the beginning. Oh, that's Ralph Badler, my dude. It's just that's so sad that him and Angie both kind of had similar feelings of just like, I'm guessing, wanting to end it.
そんなことが。
Now I see why he appeared in that wheelchair, and now I know why he refused to meet with me. He was afraid of me calling him Big Brother. He was terrified of meeting me, fearful that the part of himself that wasn't him would grow still further in his mind.
それでも彼は戦ったのです。自分の中に後宮バトラがいる以上、あなたに会うのがその義務ではないか。そう思い、彼は何度も二人の自分の狭間で戦ったのです。
Kind of similar with Beatrice, huh? Having like multiple personalities. And then, in a fit, after something like that, it was only natural that Ikuko would tell him that he didn't need to remember Ushiramiya Badler anymore. But bit by bit, he tried to forget he was once Ushiramiya Badler, doctor's instructions and medication. With that and Ikuko's diligent care, he slowly began to regain his peace of mind.
それでも、私はあなたに会わなければならないと思っていました。正直なところ、私は昨べ、一睡もできませんでした。あなたに会うことが、恐ろしかった。あなたと会うことで、私は死ぬのではないか、そう怯えたのです。しかし、私は今ここにいて、あなたとこうして普通に会話をしています。だから後悔しているのです。もっと早く私はあなたに おけば、あなたも、私の中の後ろ宮バトラーも、こんなにも長い年月。それが、申し訳なくて。
Oh man. Even like I can't understand Japanese obviously, but even that I can understand like man, this is some really good voice acting right now. You just feel the pain in his voice. As the man who was once Ushirimiya Battler said this, he broke down crying. Like Battler's cried a lot, but it's always been a very anguished, dramatic cry. This is just more of like a quiet, I don't know. It's just, oh man, this is so sad. I was like so looking forward to this, and this is so much more complicated than I thought it would be. As the man who was once Ushirimiya Battler said this, he broke down crying. I was already beginning to understand. It really was true. Ushirimiya Battler did die that day. Oh, damn it! Once again, fuck. They got me again, like the thing about Angie dying in 1998. Angie Ushirimiya, but Angie Beatrice, she lived and as her new self, just like with Badler, where it's like Badler died, but Hachijo Toya, I always have trouble with that name, didn't. After all, didn't the witches say he was dead so often with the red truth? How pathetic for the witch of the future, the witch of resurrection, who swore everyone would be together always.
トウヤさん、どうかお顔を上げてください。
It's just crazy how both of their lives, despite being apart from each other, they went in such a similar way. They both took on new identities. They both became authors. They realized why I called him Toya-san. And by calling this man by that name, I myself felt the agitation in my heart subside a little.
ありがとう。ずいぶん苦しまれたのでしょうね。本当にありがとう。
It's so sweet of Angie. Like, she wants to be able to call him by his name, his original name, her brother, but she's respecting that.
ありがとう、兄さん。今日は無理をしてここまで来てくれて。ありがとう。
Holding hands, we brought our foreheads close and cried together for a while. Then we talked of the old days. He remembered many things vividly, even though I couldn't remember myself. Each time they made me cry even harder, and he hung his head apologetically. Once I realized my tears were hurting him, I just did my best to let him speak, nodding along with a strange look on my face, something between a sob and a smile. Even if he isn't Ushirimiya Battler, my Oni-chan came back to me. Welcome home, Oni-chan. Ah, man. I thought it was just going to be like so joyous and everything, and instead it was just kind of this quiet, like bittersweet moment. It had already gotten dark outside. Even though he'd come from far away, he was willing to stay as late as this. We left the store. It's probably best if I don't meet with Mr. Toy again. Okay, that's so sad, but at the same time, like, bittersweet, right? Like, at least she knows she has that, confirmation. Hopefully, that will give her some peace. It will cause him pain. And of course, I'll find myself bound to the past again. Even so, just one more time. There was one place I felt I had to show it.
トウヤ先生、最後にもう一度だけお会いしてくださいませんか。どうしても先生をご案内したい場所があるんです。
ええ、いいですとも。
From my handbag, I pulled an invitation which had been printed on a sheet of A4 paper and folded into four. A pair of them unfolded it.
おや、これは素敵な催しですね。
そういえば先生は小説の他にもいろいろとご活躍でいらっしゃいましたね。
その日にもう一度だけお時間をくださいませんか。それで私も兄も納得すると思います。東野先生も兄の記憶の重責から解放されていいと思います。
予定は 問題ないです。文庫の後書きさえ終わらせておけば。
わかりました。寿先生、ぜひお伺いさせてもらいます。
ありがとう、東野先生。
Cold October night was a reminder when October is this like some sort of anniversary thing that they're going to of the death. Cold October night was a reminder winter was approaching. The two people who called themselves Hachijo Toya visited the city once again by Angie's invitation. Car stopped in front of a large building. Ikiko unfolded the wheelchair with a practiced hand, lent a shoulder to Toya as he got out of the passenger seat, and helped him into the chair.
立派ですね。
That is a nice house, man. That's like my dream home.
福音の家。
Gospel house. Ah!
よく知っています。
Oh, the gospel house. So is Angie still like, right? That's where all the children came from that became the servants. I thought this was just Angie's house. I'm like, damn. Very nice. But then again, she's a successful author.
後ろ宮家が援助していた子供のための施設のはずです。
育子先生、東野先生。
I guess Angie was like taking care of these kids because like with all the Ushiramiyas gone, these kids had, you know, it was like an orphanage, but they don't really have anywhere to go after.
本日は福音の家までようこそいらっしゃいました。
They were welcomed by Angie and some staff members. This was the Gospel House, a welfare institution for unfortunate children who had lost their parents. This institution was once dependent on the support it received from Ushiramiya Kinzo. However, that support had been interrupted. The Gospel House had been forced to shut down for a time. Decades had passed, and now the institution would be revived. Revived by the hands of Kotobuki Yukari.
寿先生、お久しぶりですね。本日はお招きに預かりました。これ、私たちからです。わずかですが、施設の子供たちに。
決してそのようなつもりでお招きしたわけではないのに、本当に申し訳ございません。
どうかお気になされず、未来の物語を紡ぐのはいつだって子供たち。彼らがいなければ人間の物語は続かないのですから。
子供は宝です。ですから、どうか役立ててください。
ありがとうございます。寄付金の用紙がありますので、ご面倒でなければご気に。
The Gospel House had been drastically remodeled in recent years, in the hopes children would one day be able to remember this as a fun place. Angie had used her own money to massively remodel it into a beautiful establishment. By now, she had accumulated a lot of wealth as a novelist, but even without that, she'd been saving the tens of millions of yen she got from the Ushiramiya group each year under the name of living expenses. This money had been used generously to help the children. It looks like... That's so sweet. It's giving me, like, vibes of the Ushiramiya mansion with, like, the Halloween party. When they came into the entrance hall, a cheerful scene was spread before them. Pictures and crafts created by the children. Every corner was filled with things on display. Contrast between this elegant building and the school atmosphere was amusing. The yells and laughter of kids running around drifted in from the distance.
悲しみにうつむいて、ここへやってくる子供も多いでしょう。それが、あんな笑い声を聞かせてくれるようになるのですから。あなたは
人は誰だって未来を生み出し、幸せのかけらを見つける魔法が使えるんです。ここはそういう魔法を教える魔女の学校なんです。
作太郎の大冒険に出てきた魔女の寄宿舎のことですね。
あら恥ずかしい。東野先生もお読みになられていたのですか。
先日のご縁以来、早々に読破しました。寿先生の文才のみならず、その温かなお心には本当に頭が下がります。
お恥ずかしい。どうぞ、そこの突き当たりです。
Pushing Toya's wheelchair through the corridor and reached the great ends. Let's try that again. Pushing Toya's wheelchair, we advanced through the corridor and reached the great doors at the end. Happy voices of children came from the other side. Apparently, this is where tonight's party was being held. Oh, it is. She's doing the Halloween party like she had when she was a kid, or in Battler's game. There were several jack-o'-lanterns cut out of origami. Maybe also like in honor of Maria too. Tonight was the Gospel House's Halloween party. I love how this is it's just this is giving me like all the feels, and also this feels like this is wrapping this up in a way that we've gone through so much in this story. So to have it end like this and everyone kind of being able to be at peace now is just nice. It feels earned.
なるほど。トリックオアトリートというわけですね。
He was handed a bag filled with candy. A teacher warned him in a small voice to watch out for rampaging children.
子供か。もう何年も触れ合っていません。
どうか子供たちに夢を語ってあげてください。みんなお客様を歓迎しますよ。
これは困った。何を語ってあげればいいやら。
原稿の持ち込みはよく出版社を選びましょう。
読者アンケートなんて気にしない。
それでは開けますよ。子供たちが待ってますよ。
And she opened the large double doors. Oh, oh my God! It's like, oh, I was hoping it's like an exact replication. At the sight of the hall, Toyo opened his mouth in wide-eyed shock. This was the great hall of the Ushiramiya mansion. No, that would be impossible. And even with Beatrice's portrait, they were clearly in the Gospel House. This hall was an exact look-alike of the one in the Rokenjima mansion.
素敵なホールですね。
Is she still passing down the story of Beatrice the witch?
これは露見島の後宮家のお屋敷のホールの再現ですね。
私の記憶の中にあるものを
Pretty good. I was like
再現し
considering the last time she was there, she was 6. That's very impressive.
細部が間違っているかもしれませんが。
いいえ、これは本当にあの日の後宮家のお屋敷のホールです。
And then Toy's eyes fixed on something at the other side of the room. It was a portrait of Rokenjima's other master.
記憶のものに全く同じだ。
後宮金蔵が肖像画を描かせた職人が写真を持っていました。
Right? I was wondering about that. I'm like, how, like, I don't even think that portrait was up the last time Angie was there? I don't know. But either way, that's be quite like she has a photographic memory.
それをもとに書き起こさせました。
Pretty impressive he still has that photo, and the guy's like, after all this time, is simply frozen in shock. The long, large table was filled with Halloween party food and surrounded with children stuffing themselves. It's so sweet. It's like Battler and Angie can be together at the Halloween party they weren't able to be before everything happened. The teacher said, "Everyone, we have guests." The children all looked at us at once, then stood up and ran forward. Their broad smiles at the arrival of this long-awaited guest wrapped me up. The smiles and eyes of the children welcomed me. Yeah, I know. I know all your faces.
お帰りなさ
Ah,
いませ。遅いではないか。お待ちしておりました。
おかえり。
this is so
お
sweet.
かえりなさい。
元気そうだの。
バトラ君、
おう、元気そうやな。
おかえりなさい。
ウリュウ、おかえり、バトラ。
みんな待ってたわよ。
おお、バトラさん。
ようやく主賓の到着ね。
おかえりなさいませ。
おかえりなさいませ。
バトラ卿。
おかえりなさいませ、バトラ様。
おかえりなさい。
よう、遅いぞバトラ。
待たせすぎよ。
待っていました、バトラ君。
やっと来たか。
待っていました。
おかえりなさいませ、バトラ卿。バトラ卿に敬礼。
来たわね。
おめでとうございます。
お
Aw.
兄ちゃん、おかえり。待ちくたびれたぞ。
バトラー。
すまねえ。来るのが遅れちまった。
そなた、なぜ車椅子なんぞ座っておるのか。ほら、手を貸してやるからしゃんとせい。
Beato stepped forward and held out a hand to Badler as he sat in the wheelchair. It's going too fast again.
俺は
I wish they would just let me read it.
聞け。ここにようやく我らは全員が集ったぞ。今宵黄金鏡はここに復活する。
An explosive applause greeted Badler. Everyone was there. Everyone, everyone, everyone. And Beato hugged Badler, strongly, tightly, as though she would never let him go.
本当によく帰ってきたな。
帰ってきたぜ。遅くなったな。
もう話さぬぞ。
ああ、俺ももう話さない。俺たちは永遠に一緒だ。
Is that it? It is. Oh my god, that was amazing. That was amazing. So I wonder, after all that happens there, I was like, would Hachijo Toya / Badler, would that really be the last time he would ever see Ange? I want to believe maybe. Maybe in that moment he decided to become Badler again. I would just... It's just so sad, the idea that, like, after that meeting, that Ange and Badler would just never see each other again. But that definitely leaves it more on, like, a happy note. So even if I don't know exactly what happens afterwards, this I feel very satisfied with, that I know what happened to Ange after all, and the confirmation that Badler is alive as Hachijo Toya. I feel so dumb, once again, that whole thing about, like, first with Ange, where I was still like, but they said Ange died in 1998, even though she has said before about how, like, yes, Ange Shermia dies, but, like, the witch lives on, and then she lives on as her alter ego. And then I should have realized the same thing with Badler, too. It's like, yeah, Shermia Badler died. Said in red multiple times. But Ange still knew. Oh, that was so good. I can't believe it's over, though. This has been, like, part of my, you know, such a big part of the channel and, like, the story for so long. And I'll say it's done, but it's not done. And I'll tell you guys about that in a moment. I dedicate this tale to my beloved witch, Beatrice. Oh, wait. Is there more? That's so cute, though. That's so cute. Wait, there's another game board? The next episode's been unlocked. What? We have more? Hold up. Okay, so there's okay, so we've got double credits here. Okay. I'm just curious about saying that there's more to it. I'm okay with this. I'm just curious because normally it's just like, you know, the tea party and then the, like, you know, question mark thing at the end, but okay. All right. So it's tips and the characters. Okay. I was thinking, like, do we have anything else? I think that's it. All right, let's check the tips. Okay, so there was that, and Momotaro, or Peach Boy, is a Japanese fairy tale named after its main character, Momotaro. The full story is a little too long to tell properly, but it should suffice to explain it's about a boy who was born from a giant peach. Came floating down the river. Okay. Huh. Okay, this is strange. So, like, I checked the tips from episode 8. I just see these two here. The grimoire? Alright, so that seems to be it, but after I've checked them, still says new. Okay, so the characters. Let's see the characters. Oh, okay, so there's this. Oh. I like this. I was trying to find, I'm like, where's the new stuff for the characters? The Witch of Truth who made a comeback from the depths of oblivion. She's a rare anomaly, being once a detective human and witch. I like that. So you've got regular self and her witch self. That's pretty cool. Don't know if we have any other ones here that have changed. Alright guys, well, that is going to do it for Umineko. It's crazy. It's done. When did I start playing this? Like last year? And what a journey it's been. This was absolutely an amazing story. I wouldn't expect anything less, after reading Higurashi. But while this is the end of the Umineko visual novel, it's not the end for me with Umineko. I do plan on doing kind of like a final, my thoughts about the story, the characters, all that stuff. I'm going to be kind of doing like similar to kind of like my theory videos, but this is just going to be like my thoughts about Umineko. So I want you guys to submit down below any questions that you want to ask me about Umineko. Maybe things like favorite character, favorite moments, other things you'd like to ask me about Umineko. And I will try and have that video out next Friday, Thursday for Patreon. Speaking of Patreon, I am going to be doing some exclusive stuff for Patreon, Umineko related. I talked about it doing kind of like a reread. That's going to take me forever, and it's not going to be like the schedule for it is just basically going to be whenever I have time for it. So I'm thinking about doing an exclusive like reread overview of Umineko to see like if I catch little things I wouldn't have known before. So that will be, whenever I get to it, that's going to be posted on my Patreon. I'm going to do it chapter by chapter. I also thinking about maybe doing a quick playthrough of Umineko Golden Fantasy. It's the fighting game that came free when I bought this. So I think I might play that on the channel as well, just to take a quick look at it. Something I wanted to play, but I didn't want to do it until I finished the game. As for what my next playthrough is going to be, because this was the big one. So there's going to be another big visual novel Let's Play I'm going to do. But I'm going to be going back, before I do the big visual novel playthrough, I'm going to be going back to Higurashi. Because Higurashi Rei released while I was playing Umineko. Or did it? Either way, I didn't have time to get to it because I was playing Umineko. But now I have time for it. So we're going to be doing a quick return to Higurashi. And then after I finish that, I might jump into When They Cry Seconia. I'm debating whether that's worth it to do, though, because only the first chapter has been released with no news about when the next chapter is going to come out. I might go into that, but the next big playthrough after this is going to be Fate Stay Night. So that's going to be coming up into the near future. I hope you guys are excited for that. I know I've been rambling, but I mean, this feels like a big momentous occasion. And this has been my biggest playthrough on the channel yet, both in terms, it feels like both in just the sheer length of it. I mean, 100 episodes. How crazy is that? But also the scale. Like, it feels like you guys have been super invested in my Umineko Let's Play. A lot of people found my channel through my Umineko playthrough, and you guys have been so kind throughout, and it's just been amazing sharing this journey with you. So thank you so much for sticking through to the end. So I think I've gone on long enough. Thank you guys again for being awesome throughout this playthrough. And I hope you enjoyed the journey with me. I certainly enjoyed my time in the world of Umineko. But like I said, I'm not quite done with Umineko yet. So thank you guys once again for coming with me on this journey. Look forward to that Umineko discussion video next week. Don't forget to submit your questions. And I hope to see you for my future Let's Plays. All right, guys. Bye. Special shoutouts to my top tier patrons: Revealing Storm, Asborn Kennedy, Harry Gazif, iCognito, Jared Fan, Poxy, Joel Oostman, and Zoran Ether.